For the Assembly, we will then hear the report of the rapporteur, and finally we will adopt the report on the 24th session of the Assembly. Distinguished delegates, let us proceed now to agenda item 5b, report of the Credentials Committee. I give the floor to the chair of the Credentials Committee, Mr. Manuel Morales Ovares of Costa Rica, to present the report of the Credentials Committee contained in document ICC-ASP24/L2. I give the floor.
Madam President, distinguished delegates, the Credentials Committee held two meetings on the 1st and 5th of December 2025. The committee had an updated list provided to us by the Secretariat of the credentials that have been presented by delegations to the 24th session of the ASP of the ICC. We would like to inform the Assembly of the following. On the 5th of December at 8:45 a.m., first, a total of 74 states party have presented formal credentials from their representatives, or for their representatives, issued by a head of state or government or the Minister of Foreign Affairs or any person authorized by either one of those, in keeping with the rules of procedure of the Assembly of States Parties. The names of the countries shall now be read out in English alphabetical order.
Andorra, Armenia, Australia, Austria, Bangladesh, Belgium, Bolivia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Brazil, Bulgaria, Canada, Central African Republic, Chile, Colombia, Congo, Costa Rica, Croatia, Cyprus, Czech Republic, Denmark, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Estonia, Finland, France, Georgia, Germany, Ghana, Greece, Guatemala, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Jordan, Latvia, Liechtenstein, Lithuania, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Maldives, Malta, Marshall Islands, Mauritius, Mexico, Mongolia, Montenegro, Netherlands, New Zealand, Nigeria, North Macedonia, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Republic of Korea, Republic of Moldova, Romania, San Marino, Serbia, Slovakia, Slovenia, South Africa, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Tunisia, Uganda, United Kingdom, United Republic of Tanzania, Uruguay, Venezuela, and Zambia. Segundo.
Two, a total of 13 states parties sent a telefax or other electronic means of communication providing information about the appointment by a head of state or government or by a minister of foreign affairs or any person authorized by either one of them of its representatives to the 24th session of the ASP. I shall read out these countries in the English alphabetical order.
Argentina, Botswana, Chad, Côte d'Ivoire, Djibouti, Kenya, Panama, Peru, Sierra Leone, State of Palestine, Tajikistan, Ukraine, and Vanuatu. A este respecto,
here, the Credentials Committee recommends that the Assembly accept the credentials of the representatives of states party that I've just mentioned, on the understanding that those states that have not yet done so shall present their formal credentials to the Secretariat as soon as possible. Madam President, this brings the provisional report of the Credentials Committee to a close. Thank you.
I thank the chair of the Credentials Committee for introducing the report. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to approve the report of the Credentials Committee contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L2? I recognize Gambia. You have the floor.
Right. Good morning, colleagues and excellencies, and thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I will try to be as brief as possible, and I do appreciate the work done by the Credentials Committee, and we will just wish to register our, should I rather say, crave the indulgence of the committee to consider the consideration that is going to be made by the Republic of the Gambia to be part of those that will be submitting their credentials as part of in a version of an electronic copy. It arrived just after the conclusion of the Credentials Committee's meeting, and we will be grateful if it could be amended to include Gambia as part of those that submitted their credentials in an electronic version. Thank you.
I thank Gambia for this addition. Are there any other similar requests? I don't see it, so I would propose that we would adopt the report as amended by the name of Gambia, as proposed, and do we agree to adopt the report as orally amended? I see no objection. It is so decided. We have thus concluded our consideration of agenda item 5. As regards the adoption of the draft resolution of the 24th session, we would recall that some resolutions were introduced yesterday, while the text of the draft omnibus resolution has been made available this morning. And I would also note that there were some corrections to be made, and the text is being prepared and to be distributed while we speak here in the plenary. I first invite the coordinator for the omnibus resolution, Ms. Beatrice Mayede of Canada, to introduce the draft omnibus resolution. As I indicated there are some technical corrections that are being produced, so that means that she is not in the room right now, but I would propose that we would start dealing with the other resolutions while she would make sure that the right correct version is available and then introduce the resolution. Distinguished delegates, before we proceed to the adoption of draft resolution, I wish to recall that on 3rd of December 25, on Wednesday, the Assembly adopted the declaration of the Assembly of States Parties at the 24th session of the Assembly, issued as document ICC-ASP24/Declaration 1. It is posted on the webpage of the Assembly, and as I did on Wednesday, I once more thank all delegations for their spirit of flexibility and cooperation, which led to the outcome that we adopted. Since we would like to conclude our work today as envisaged in Rule 56 of the Rules of Procedure of the Assembly, and was also done in the past, we shall now proceed to take action on all draft resolutions before us. I would propose that the Assembly will now take action on the draft resolution on amendments to the Rules of Procedure and evidence of the International Criminal Court contained in document ICC-ASP24/L4. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft resolution on amendments to the rules of procedure and evidence contained in document ICC-ASP24/L4. I see no objection. The draft resolution on amendments to the rules of procedure and evidence of the International Criminal Court is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution on amendments to the rules of procedure and evidence? I see none. The Assembly has thus concluded its consideration of agenda item 14. The Assembly will now take action on the draft resolution to implement recommendation R108 of the group of independent experts contained in document ICC-ASP24/L5. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft resolution to implement recommendation R108 of the group of independent experts contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L5. I see no objection. The draft resolution to implement recommendation R108 of the group of independent experts is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution to implement recommendation R108 of the group of independent experts? I see none. And we shall then move to take action on the draft resolution on the procedure and criteria for the waiver of the loss of voting rights contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L6. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft resolution on the procedure and criteria for the waiver of the loss of voting rights contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L6? I see no objection. The draft resolution on the procedure and criteria for the waiver of the loss of voting rights is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution on the procedure and criteria for waiver of the loss of voting rights? I see Canada. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. As delegations from all regions highlighted during this week's general debate, the Court's financial resilience is essential to its overall resilience in the face of growing challenges. As states parties, we share a clear obligation to pay our assessed contributions in full and on time. Doing so not only safeguards the Court's operations, but also enables prudent and realistic budget planning, aligned with the priorities of the Court. The Rome Statute reflects the seriousness of this obligation. By providing that a state party in arrears for 2 or more years loses its voting rights in the Assembly and the Bureau, it underscores that financial compliance is integral to our membership and vital to the Court's ability to fulfill its mandate. At the same time, the statute recognizes that exceptional circumstances may arise. When conditions beyond a state's party's control make payment impossible, the Assembly may grant an exemption to preserve voting rights. With this in mind, we welcome the consensus adoption of a resolution clarifying the procedure, timelines, and criteria for assessing waiver requests. We thank delegations for their constructive engagement in the budget management, oversight, facilitation, and Ambassador Tisalu for his leadership, which have made this outcome possible. Looking ahead to implementation, it is important to bear in mind that when evaluating a waiver request under Article 112, Paragraph 8 of the statute, the Assembly will first have to determine whether the failure to pay is due to conditions beyond the state's control, and then consider whether to grant the waiver based on the newly defined criteria. In this respect, for example, the history and comparative arrears status of a requesting state could lead the Assembly to decline a waiver request when that state has been in arrears for several years. Moreover, with timeliness of a submission now a criterion, late submissions could also be viewed unfavorably by the Assembly. Conversely, the feasibility of a proposed payment plan submitted by the requesting state could be viewed favorably, as it would demonstrate that state's commitment to fulfilling its obligations. It is important to recall that waivers were never intended as a permanent solution, but as a measure of last resort for states facing severe economic hardship. Our shared objective remains clear: to strengthen the court and preserve its independence and sustainability. Thank you.
I thank Canada for the statement. We shall revert to agenda item 12, consideration and adoption of the budget for the 24th financial year. Here we take up the report of the working group on the program budget, the draft resolution on the program budget for 26, and the proposed program budget for 26. We will first return to the report of the working group on the program budget. You have before you the report of the working group contained in document ICC-ASP24/WGBB.1, which has been submitted by the chair of the working group on the program budget, Ambassador Jorge Carvajal San Martin of Chile. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to adopt the report of the working group on the program budget contained in document ICC-ASP24/WGBB.1. So, if I see no objection, the report of the working group is adopted. I see no objection. The Assembly shall now take action on the draft resolution, the program budget for 26, contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L7. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before taking action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that the Assembly wishes to adopt the draft resolution contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L7 without a vote? I see no objection. The draft resolution contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L7 is adopted. Is there any delegation wishing to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution? United Kingdom, you have the floor.
Thank you. President, representatives of the court, ambassadors and colleagues, the delegations of Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, the Republic of Korea, Spain, and the United Kingdom wanted to speak first to express our gratitude to Ambassador Carvajal and Paula for their expert facilitation of the budget negotiation. Second, we wanted to reiterate our support for this budget and the way in which it was negotiated. We think that the quick and collegial way that we reached agreement is a testament to states parties' support for the court, all participants' openness to addressing concerns, and the court's concerted efforts to constrain the growth of the 2026 proposed programme budget and to find efficiencies and savings. Thanks to all ICC colleagues for these efforts, and thanks to Marco Blasi, who retires this year after many budget cycles. We hope that the court will continue its effective one court and prudent approach into the 2027 budget. We are very happy to adopt this budget in support of the court's 2026 activities. Thank you.
Thank you for your statement and give floor to Luxembourg.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the honor of speaking on behalf of the Benelux countries, Belgium, the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and my own country, Luxembourg. First of all, we want to express our gratitude to the facilitators for the budget, Ambassador Jorge Carvajal San Martin from Chile and his deputy Paula Monsalve Espinosa. They allowed us to achieve a consensus on the budget resolution well ahead of the end of this ASP. We thank them for their constant commitment and hard work over the last months, the inclusive approach, and the quality of the dialogue that they promoted throughout the process. This guaranteed a constructive spirit for our dialogue among state parties. Thus it is that the Budget Committee and other bodies of the court were included, and it was essential for a quick and speedy resolution of the discussion. We also want to thank the court itself for having presented a reasonable proposal in these trying times. We applaud the strategic approach for the future of the court, the implementation of the one court principle, and cooperative efforts with the different bodies of the court to absorb financial pressures. We have a clear hierarchy of priorities and evaluation of risk. On that basis, the court has been able to strike a good balance between its budgetary needs and financial capacities of state parties. Benelux countries also want to thank the Budgets and Finance Committee for the clear and rigorous report in which it presented a recommendation that only changed ever so slightly the proposal made by the court. We want to reaffirm our full support to the work of the Budget and Finance Committee and applaud its technical role in the budgetary process. Last but not least, we want to thank all state parties for their contributions that were constructive and the flexibility that many of them displayed so as to reach this result rapidly. It is a clear show of the unity of the Assembly and a clear signal of our support to the court. Despite difficult international contexts in which the ICC has to work as well as other international organizations, we are convinced that the budget on which we managed to agree by consensus will allow the court to fulfill its mandate effectively. We therefore encourage all state parties to transfer as quickly as possible their assessed contributions and contributions in arrears so that the court can have the impact for which it was designed. Thank you.
I thank you for your statement. We shall now proceed to take action on the proposed program budget for 26 contained in document ICC-ASP24/10 as read in conjunction with the recommendations of the working group contained in its report ICC-ASP/24/WGBB.1. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before taking the action on the proposed program budget for 26? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the proposed program budget for 26 contained in document ICC-ASP/24/10 as read in conjunction with the recommendations of the working group on the budget contained in its report ICC-ASP/24/WGBB.1. I see no objection. It is so decided. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the program budget? I see none. I wish to express appreciation on behalf of the Assembly for the assistance which the Chair of the Committee on Budget and Finance, Mr. Yun Yamada, has provided at this session. The Assembly has concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 12. The Assembly will now take action on the draft resolution on cooperation contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L8. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position before we take action on the draft resolution? I see none. May I take it that it is the wish of the Assembly to adopt by consensus the draft resolution on cooperation contained in document ICC-ASP/24/L8? I see no objection. The draft resolution on cooperation is adopted. Is there any delegation that wishes to explain its position after the adoption of the resolution on cooperation? I see none. The Assembly has thus concluded its consideration of Agenda Item 15. I am we appreciate that the budget, the omnibus facilitator has been working hard to make the corrected version of L document available, and I'm being advised that it has been just distributed, and she's on her way to the conference room. So I would ask us all to wait a few minutes so that she would be available to introduce the draft resolution. Dear delegates, having in mind that there are corrigendum being distributed, and it is of course fair for you all to have a look at the document once it is in your hands. So I would propose that we would suspend the meeting for half an hour, and we would reconvene at 12:15. I hope that this is acceptable.